They humiliated her for the linen dress. They kicked her out of the boutique like she didn't belong. They live-streamed every second of her humiliation and called it entertainment. But 2 days later, when the chapel doors opened, and she walked in wearing the very gown they once refused, the world realized they had shamed the wrong woman. Not just a bride, she was the one who owned it all. Hi everyone. Welcome to Alive Stories. Today's story is about a simple woman was humiliated at a bridal boutique until her name was heard across the wedding hall. Let's get started. Beverly Hills, Wednesday morning. Boutique Humiliation, 10:02 a.m. The door chime rang softly as Eliza stepped in, bringing with her a whisper of early summer breeze. She wore a simple ivory linen dress with a soft V-neck. No embellishments. Her hair was loosely tied back, her flats worn down at the heels. In her hand, a canvas tote bag with no brand name. No makeup, no perfume, just the faint scent of morning wind and tree sap trailing behind her. No one in the boutique recognized her. Truthfully, no one even bothered to look. Inside Boutique Elysian, warm gold lights bathe racks of preserved bridal gowns like sacred relics, Italian tulle, Japanese silk, gowns beaded with precious stones, a world built for the elite, and only for them. 4 boutique associates, dressed in sleek black uniforms, stood behind the reception desk, mid-conversation. They paused as Eliza walked in. Their eyes scanned her, from shoes to hair, past the linen dress, the frayed flats, the soft bun. Then one of them let out a quiet chuckle. "Hi, can we help you?" The tallest of the group, glossy brown hair, red lipstick, stepped forward. Her name tag read Sierra. Her tone was sweet, but her gaze was sharp. Eliza nodded, her voice soft but steady. "I'm here for my 10 o'clock fitting." "Eliza Gray, I booked 3 months ago." She held up her phone. The screen displayed a confirmation email with the boutique logo, her name, and an order code. Sierra glanced at the screen, then gave a small, pointed laugh. "I'm sorry. There must be some mistake. We don't do fittings for off-the-rack clients." Eliza didn't react. She simply lowered her phone and replied calmly, "It's not off the rack. It's a custom order. Code 0912GR. Another associate, platinum blonde, name tag Tessa, tilted her head and whispered, "You sure she didn't steal someone's booking? Looks like a thrift store blogger." "Definitely not one of ours," Sierra replied, voice light as air, but loud enough to carry. Eliza stood taller. Her expression didn't shift. Her eyes didn't blink. "I'd like to speak to your manager." Sierra laughed, this time with undisguised condescension. "Sweetheart, I am the manager." Behind her, Tessa had already pulled out her phone, discreetly recording. A caption appeared on screen. "Crash alert, linen girl tries to fake a bridal fitting." A VIP client entered from the back room. Mrs. Carly Hensley, wife of an oil magnate, with bleached platinum hair, a fur wrap, and diamond rings as large as coins. She glanced at Eliza, wrinkled her nose, then spoke, "Who let that in?" Without waiting for an answer, she stepped closer, voice sharp. "You don't belong here. Take your little organic tote and find yourself a clearance bin." Then, thwack, she swatted Eliza's shoulder with her designer handbag, like shooing away an insect. One associate giggled, another zoomed in on the phone for a closer shot of Eliza's face. "Let's not make a scene," Sierra said, her voice rising with performative grace. "Just leave quietly. There's a thrift mall 3 blocks down." Eliza didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't back away. She looked around the room, at the white gowns hung like marble statues, at the polished cruelty wrapped in boutique politeness, then locked eyes with Sierra. Her voice cut through the air, slow, clear, and measured like the evening news. "Your dresses won't matter when you realize who's really paying for them." Outside the boutique, sunlight spilled across the sidewalk like a drawn line. Eliza walked past the glass doors without turning back. Behind her, the laughter kept ringing, fingers typing directions. Live streams are flowing fast. She really thought she belonged. Poor thing. But within that moment, beneath the weight of mockery, a truth was taking root. They had just thrown out the woman who signed their paychecks, and they didn't even know it. 4 months earlier, Brooklyn, New York. There was nothing remarkable about the third-floor studio apartment: a raw wood bookshelf, a worn drafting table, an industrial sewing machine pressed against the window. And in the middle of that quiet room, Eliza was completely herself. No spotlight, no wedding gowns, no fashion stages, just a woman with slender, steady hands cutting into white cotton. When no one watched, she worked like she was stitching the world back together. Eliza Gray wasn't born into silk and crystal. She grew up between mismatched bolts of fabric. Her mother was a freelance seamstress, and she survived on alterations for a block-long radius in Queens. By the time she was 8, Eliza could flatten pleats, free-cut cloth without chalk, and thread a needle by touch. She didn't attend a prestigious design school. She didn't intern at a couture house. Instead, she sent her sketches to boutique labels. She stitched for fledgling designers with no studios of their own. She made, she delivered, she disappeared. No one knew her name, but almost everyone had worn her designs without knowing it. She once told an old friend, "I don't need credit. I just want people to remember how they felt wearing it." Then came Owen Langford, the only man who didn't see her as ordinary. Owen was the heir to Langford Media Group, a global communications empire where scandals started as headlines and celebrities begged to make the cover. But Owen didn't like the stage. He drank tea instead of scotch. He only spoke once, and the room fell silent. They met at a book launch in Tribeca. Eliza wore linen and a tote bag, like always. Owen wore an open white shirt, no tie, like always. 3 months later, they were engaged. No press, no public posts, just a platinum ring and a whisper, "I don't need the world to know who you are. I just need the world to know you choose when to speak and when to stay silent." After the engagement, Owen suggested she work with a private team to plan the wedding. Eliza refused. She wanted to choose her dress herself. No fanfare, no entourage. "If they know who I am, they'll treat me differently. And I don't want that distorting the story I'm trying to tell." She chose Elysian Bridal, a boutique in Beverly Hills known for outfitting royal heiresses and Oscar winners. A brand synonymous with generational wealth, $10 million weddings, and gowns that didn't start below $51,000. Eliza didn't choose Elysian for extravagance. She chose it because she'd just purchased 12% of its ownership through a holding company. It was the first step in a quiet plan to acquire a chain of elite bridal fashion houses, legacy brands struggling to find relevance in the Instagram era. She booked her fitting like any regular customer. Under her real name, no mention of Owen, no black card, just a personal email and a bank transfer from Greystone Developments LLC, the holding company on file. No one connected Greystone with Eliza Gray. That was intentional. By the time she walked into Elysian, she already knew the odds of being judged were high. Linen dress, worn flats, low bun. She could have walked in wearing Alexander McQueen. But she didn't. She wanted to look directly into the system she was about to own and see how it behaved when it believed she had no right to touch it. And the system did exactly what she expected. She was mocked, filmed without consent, escorted out, live-streamed and labeled a crasher. She didn't stop them because she wasn't there to fix them. She was there to witness how people revealed themselves when they thought no one important was watching. That night, Eliza didn't turn on the TV, she didn't check Twitter, she didn't watch the live stream that had already gone viral with 400,000 views. She sat on her studio floor, folding white fabric, the same gown she was custom making for a bride who'd once been told she was too plain to wear something beautiful. Eliza thought true beauty doesn't come from power, it comes from how it embraces those who don't have any. Then she turned off the light and waited. The video of Eliza at Elysian was first uploaded to TikTok by Tessa, the platinum-haired employee. It lasted just 19 seconds from the moment Eliza held up her phone to confirm her appointment to the moment she was dismissed from the store. Caption: "Thriftcore girl tries to crash Elysian Bridal. We don't do burlap weddings, hun." Within 3 hours, the clip had surpassed 250,000 views. By day's end, 1.2 million. The hashtag #BeigeBride began trending. The next morning, Twitter ignited with mockery. "My fiancée just bought her dress from Elysian. Thank God she didn't have to share a fitting with a linen girl." This is what happens when you chase luxury with no sense of style. She looks like she stepped out of an indie film nobody watched. Who let her into Beverly Hills? A fashion magazine editor tweeted, "Luxury is earned, not wandered in with flats and a canvas tote." No one fact-checked, no one asked. Because everything Eliza wore that day told a perfect false story. And society, from social media to retail floors, accepted it instantly. 48 hours later, fashion influencers started parodying the clip for engagement, dressing in linen, walking into luxury stores, pretending to be thrown out. One caption read, "POV, you're the thrift core CEO of Imagination Land." Sophie Kane, a podcaster with 1 million followers, discussed the clip, "Wook, I support accessible fashion. But there's a line between minimalist chic and looking like you got lost on your way to Trader Joe's." The entire industry laughed, as if it was obvious. Eliza didn't respond. No statement, no correction. She also didn't cancel her second fitting, scheduled at a private Elysian showroom inside the Langford estate in Napa Valley, where her secret wedding to Owen would take place. 1 week later, Napa Valley, the guest list was locked. No press, no confirmation. Among the 100 invited were 5 from the original Elysian team, including Sierra, Tessa, and their regional manager, invited under the label Strategic Partners. They assumed the viral clip had gained traction, that Elysian was getting unexpected PR, that the promotions were coming. None of them suspected they'd been invited, not because they were seen, but because they had failed to see. Morning of the preview brunch, Eliza arrived early, not in a wedding dress, just a pale beige linen dress, short-sleeved, slightly sun-faded at the hem. No makeup, same flats, hair loosely tied. She walked the stone path where chairs were being arranged for the tea reception. A small group stood by the refreshment table, Sierra, Tessa, and 2 fashion bloggers. They spotted her. Tessa leaned in, stage whispering, "Wait, is that the linen girl?" Sierra smirked. "She's back. God, does she own more than one outfit?" A blogger giggled, pulling out her phone. "Can we make this a trilogy? Linen girl crashes Napa." Eliza kept walking, no flinch, no hesitation. Someone stepped in her path, with forced politeness. "Hi, this is a private event. Vendors should use the service entrance." Eliza smiled. "Calm, I'm not a vendor." Sierra cut in, "Then you're lost. This isn't for stylists or interns." Tessa began live streaming, caption numbered "Beige Bride Returns, Napa Edition." Viewers 500, then 5,000, rapidly climbing. A woman in an Elisab gown walked over, sneering if she's here for wine. Someone better hand her a cork and send her back to Whole Foods. Laughter, another, identity unclear, handed Eliza a glass of champagne. "Here, toast to the wrong address." Eliza didn't take it. She looked across the circle, gaze steady, not challenging, just revealing. Then she said, "I'm exactly where I need to be." Tessa whispered into the live stream, delusional, "She thinks she's invited." Laughter again. Someone moved in closer with their camera. Next up on #BeigeGate, the plot twist no one asked for. Eliza didn't hide, didn't lower her face. Another guest chuckled. "Try the service tent down the hill. Sweetheart, they might have leftovers." And then it happened. A security staffer approached, not rushed, not loud, just a soft-spoken presence, "Ma'am, I've been asked to escort you to the main hall. Mr. Langford is waiting." The laughter froze. Tessa blinked. "Wait." Escort her where Eliza said nothing. She simply followed, her face still, calm as a lake untouched by wind. Tessa turned the camera around. Her expression is now uncertain. What just happened? No one knew. But in the silence that followed, every casual cruelty, once dismissed as harmless, began to feel like evidence. Online searching, the live stream clip was edited, now showing only the moment Eliza turned away with the security escort. Caption: "Mystery guest gets VIP escort." Who is she really? But Eliza didn't have to tell them, because of the truth was about to walk in on its own. Eliza walked behind the security escort down a hallway of polished stone, past carved wooden doors, past guests still swirling champagne and sharp-tongued laughter. She didn't look back, not out of pride, but because she didn't need to for 10 days leading up to the wedding. Eliza had moved through the estate like a shadow, seen by all, noticed by none. She didn't sit at the head table, didn't sign off on seating charts, didn't pick the flowers, didn't taste the cake. Each morning, she simply walked the grounds alone when the light was still soft and everyone else was asleep. She watched the way people touched during small talk, the way servers flinched or smiled, depending on who passed. She could tell who lived to be admired and who merely existed to avoid being stepped on. She didn't write anything down. She remembered. She once told Owen. When he asked why she wasn't involved in the wedding details, if I plan everything, it'll go exactly how I want, but I want to see how people behave when they think I'm just someone passing through. Owen chuckled, half amused, half concerned. How long do you plan to test them? She looked at him. Eyes steady until they truly believe I have nothing. Only then will they show me who they really are. And they did. Every mocking laugh, every dismissive glance, every live stream is meant to humiliate, not captured on camera, but stored in memory, with purpose. That morning, when Eliza was dismissed from the reception path for not dressing appropriately, she didn't flinch. She had anticipated that moment. Because humiliation doesn't begin when someone raises their voice. It begins with the first look someone gives, when they price you by your shoes. Earlier that day, a flower attendant named Sophia had whispered to her, "They don't know who you are." Eliza tilted her head. "And you?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I don't know, but no one stands as tall as you do when they're being laughed at." Eliza smiled gently. "That's because I'm not here to be believed. I'm here to let them reveal themselves." Upstairs, the influencers were still drinking, still talking about the linen girl. One said if she's going to crash a wedding, the least she could do is wear something with a real seam. Another added hope someone live streams when she gets booted again. None of them knew that the phones they held, their supposed tools of influence, were quietly documenting their own indictment. Eliza didn't need to clap back, because the greatest form of resistance is a silence that understands everything. Alone in the room beside the reception hall, Eliza faced the mirror. The linen dress she wore, creased at the hem, faded at the shoulders, was the first one she ever made, at age 19. Not because she couldn't afford something new, but because she wanted them to see one last time what they had so casually dismissed. Unfiltered, uncorrected. A soft breeze pushed through the open window. The white curtain lifted like a signal, something about to be released. Eliza closed her eyes, not to escape, but to prepare. 6:26 p.m. Grand Hall, Napa Valley Estate. The slow hum of cello strings filled the candlelit hall, curling beneath a vaulted ceiling and white flowers cascading from a wooden arbor. The guests were seated. Champagne glasses are half drained, a hush of expectation in the air. But the bride had not yet arrived. Tessa, the boutique assistant from Elysian, checked her phone for the 10th time. She scrolled through the now muted live stream, where viewers were still asking, "Where's the linen girl? Did they finally kick her out? Please, no more wedding dress disasters." Sierra, the self-proclaimed boutique manager, took a slow sip of red wine, eyes scanning the room. "Definitely some PR stunt," she said. "These influencer types love hiring weird girls to stir up drama. People with real money don't need to wear rags to prove it." Some nodded in agreement. Camille, a luxury brand rep in attendance, pursed her lips. "I was invited here for my credentials, not because I'm trying to make a statement." 6:34 p.m. The cello stopped. The twin doors at the end of the hall began to open slowly. Sunset light spilled into the aisle like a spotlight from nature itself. And then Eliza walked in. No more linen. She wore the very gown Elysian boutique once refused her ivory silk, hand-embroidered with Swarovski crystals. 800 hours of needlework. The train kissed the floor in strands of liquid silver under the candlelight. Her hair was swept into a low chignon, pinned with a silver leaf hairpiece, the signature emblem of Grey Atelier. No heavy makeup, no perfume cloud, just clean skin, clear eyes, and the kind of presence that required no label. She walked alone, and each step drove a nail into the coffin the system had built for itself. The front rows held their breath. Tessa blinked, dropping her phone. Sierra froze, unsure whether to rise or disappear. Camille leaned toward the guest beside her. Who? Who is she? No answer, because everyone was watching, from the far end of the aisle. The groom appeared. Owen Langford, heir to Langford Media Group, an empire that shaped public perception on every continent. He met Eliza in the center of the aisle, their eyes locked. He smiled, he nodded. Then he turned to face the crowd. His voice wasn't loud, but every syllable landed like stone on glass. Good evening. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to the woman I'm marrying. This is Eliza Gray. And if her name doesn't ring a bell, it's probably because you've worn her work without ever knowing it. The room stirred. Whispers rose. Owen raised a hand. She's the founder of Gray Atelier, Europe's quietest design force, the mind behind 12 of the last season's most acclaimed runway campaigns. She's the anonymous designer who saved Elias Group from bankruptcy with an unbranded collection. And she's now the third largest shareholder of Elysian Bridal. Silence, dense and immovable. Camille's mouth dropped open. Her fingers tightened around her wineglass. Tessa looked around, searching for someone to deflect the blame. Sierra stood up, sat down, stood again. Owen continued, calmer now, but with a colder edge last week. Eliza walked into a boutique she partially owns. She never said who she was, never asked for special treatment. But in return, she was mocked on Livestream, escorted out, and called a thrift girl. Still, no one moved. She didn't sue, didn't post a rebuttal, didn't correct the record, because she understands. Those with real power don't have to shout. Eliza took another step forward. She turned her gaze to the right side of the hall, where Sierra, Tessa, Camille, and three influencers now sat paralyzed, fingers locked, faces red, or pretending to check their phones. She didn't smile, but her eyes said, everything I saw you, when you thought no one was watching. Owen looked toward the woman standing near the door in a gray suit, Alexa Min, COO of Langford Group. Alexa read the names. Alexa tapped her tablet. Her voice was crisp, and final Camille Laurent Chint, Sierra Nash, Tessa Brooks, due to discriminatory behavior, defamation, and unauthorized image distribution. Your partner contracts are hereby terminated. Revenue bonuses revoked. Internal memo to be issued within 24 hours. The three rose simultaneously, voices overlapping. I didn't know. It was just a joke. She never said who she was. Eliza met their panic with steady silence. I didn't tell you, she said softly, because I wanted to know, who are you when I'm no one? Two security staff approached. No shouting, no struggle. They simply stood nearby. And the women walked out, quietly under the weight of 120 guests' eyes, and the silence of the very phones they once used to shame others. Tessa turned one last time, voice shaking. I didn't mean to. I didn't think it was real. But Eliza had already turned away. Owen faced the guests again. Eliza chose silence, not because she was weak, but because she's strong enough to change the system without anyone knowing she's behind it. The cello resumed. Eliza ascended the altar. She didn't need to give a speech because everything had already been said, not in words, but in presence. The gown she wore carried no label, but everyone in that room now understood the woman once dismissed as a fitting crasher had just rewritten the rules of the very industry that tried to exclude her. After the wedding ceremony ended, the candlelight still flickered gently around the Whitestone estate. No one left immediately. Guests clustered in small groups, silent. The chatter that had once filled the morning now gave way to a collective pause. There were no whispers, only exchanged glances as if each person was silently reevaluating their own place in a portrait that had just been turned inside out. Eliza didn't remain at the center. After the vows, she left the stage, walking across a lavender garden in bloom, and stood alone by the stone railing overlooking the valley. Owen approached behind her. He didn't say much, just placed a hand gently on her back, a gesture without show, but full of weight. People are talking about you. She didn't turn around. They've been talking about me for a long time. Today is just the first time they didn't dare whisper. A few steps away, Alexa Min, COO of Langford Group, was speaking with the legal team. Terminations, contract withdrawals, Impress management had all been approved, set for execution within 72 hours. Liza didn't join. She didn't need to deliver any final blow, because justice didn't come from a gavel strike. It came from a truth that could no longer be reversed. The next morning, headlines flooded across social media and press outlets. She was the bride and the boss. The woman in linen owns the industry you thought she didn't belong to. From mocked to married, the designer who turned gatekeeping inside out. Eliza didn't post a single statement, but on the homepage of Grey Atelier, one sentence quietly appeared. We design for women who've been told they don't belong. 1 week later, the Elysian Boutique in Beverly Hills replaced its signage. The new name Evelyn Gray, named after Eliza's mother, the seamstress. The old management team had been replaced, but not everyone was cast aside. One afternoon, in the new Grey Atelier headquarters, Margot, a former assistant responsible for fittings, walked in, blueprint in hand, face uncertain. Eliza looked up gently. You're not being let go. Margot hesitated. I stayed silent. I knew what they did was wrong, but I was afraid to lose my job. Eliza nodded. I don't need people who shout in crowds. I need people quiet enough to see the wrong all and still carry compassion. She pulled a paper from her drawer. I need someone to coordinate guest experience for our new boutiques. I'd like that person to be you. Margot froze. Her eyes welled up. You trust me. Even though I stayed silent, Eliza smiled, not bitter, not sarcastic, just calm, because you were the only one who said, I'm sorry, when no one asked you to. In a rare interview weeks later, a reporter asked Eliza, do you think you've gotten your revenge? Eliza paused, then answered, it wasn't revenge. I reset the measure. Elegance isn't what you wear. It's how you treat someone you believe has nothing. That evening, at the post-wedding celebration, as guests started to leave, a small group of young women stood at the gates. None wore designer dresses. They came only to catch a glimpse of the bride. Eliza exited with Owen. One of the girls called out, are you real? Or was this all media choreography? Eliza looked at them, then slipped off her heels, holding them in one hand. I'm the woman who was kicked out of a place she owned, and I'm still here, not to say I won, but to remind you if anyone ever dismissed you because of how you look, the fault was never yours. She reached out her hand, inviting them into the garden, where lanterns had just begun to glow. No one gets to guard the door. No one gets to rise by pushing someone down. And if they try, let your silence be your answer. But don't you ever walk away with your head bowed. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt you didn't belong because your shoes weren't in fashion, because your face wasn't familiar, because you wore no label? It was easy for others to define who you were. Eliza Gray wasn't a symbol. She was a mirror, reflecting how society treats those it deems unimportant. She didn't have to shout. She didn't expose. She didn't defend herself with loud declarations. She simply stood still and let the world reveal the masks it had worn for far too long. Maybe you've been like her, mispronounced, overlooked in a meeting you spent weeks preparing for, told you don't quite fit, just because you didn't dress the way they expected. Or maybe you stood on the other side, you laughed, you looked away, you snapped a photo and posted a caption, and never once asked, what if that were me? If this story made you reflect, you're not alone. We've all been Eliza, or we've ignored an Eliza right in front of us. Leave a comment, share your story, name a moment when you stayed silent and later wished you hadn't. Because change doesn't begin with a dramatic confrontation. It begins with someone willing to look inward when there's nothing left to hide. If you believe dignity doesn't require a brand name, like, share, and subscribe. Because maybe, just maybe, this video will reach someone stepping into a room, being judged, and needing a reason to stay standing tall. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.